Yeah, we did some tests actually. So it's like, when you do Google, how it records everything information. So if you're talking if you have any kind of sound activation on your kind of Android device, and you talk about any random topic that you don't have, like maybe for example, cat food, right? A random topic that you didn't even have a cat, and you start searching, and it'll do targeted marketing with cat food. So,
Here we are with the Rare Network podcast, episode number 18 with Dr. Navjit Dhaliwal. Did I pronounce that correctly?
and it's close enough. Navjit Dhaliwal, yeah.
Navjit Dhaliwal, thank you so much for joining us from Iagon. Really excited about this one. Decentralized cloud storage, super important. Glad to see people executing on it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Awesome. Great to have you on here. I want to kick it off before we dive into Iagon and all the stuff you have going on. I'd love to learn more about your history, kind of like your upbringing, where you grew up, your education, and what kind of got you into technology.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I actually was born in India. I moved to Canada when I was 6. My parents come up from a big family, and they moved to Canada to seek a better living for their family as well. So they did pretty well. They had their own leather furniture factory. My dad and his 5 brothers. And while I was there, I was also pushed into the medical field by them. But in high school, I actually did some programming classes, C++. And my mom got me into keyboard lessons really early. I think I was 12, and I was playing around with DOS and a lot of computer stuff. At the time, we had 56K modems. So I'm used to all that, early kind of internet phase as well. So it was a lot of fun back then as well, because this new technology was very intriguing, and definitely eager to kind of learn how things were developed and things like that. So I got into programming in high school, but I didn't go that direction. My parents pushed me into a medical field, and I did my bachelor's in Canada, in Hamilton, McMaster, and then I moved to. Didn't finalize the whole schooling there because I realized early that the dentistry school in Canada was really tough to get into. So I went to Poland actually to finish off my dental degree, and I finished off my degree in 2012. So that's when I actually a year after that I read the Satoshi paper, became interested, not instantly, but after a few reads, became very interested in the blockchain space, which was very early, I guess, at that time. And also being from the healthcare sector, I kind of feared for kind of patient data privacy. And that was kind of the first initial thoughts and the first initial ideas where the Iagon idea came from. That one first, it was called, I think it was called Juno in the beginning. That was the name. Not a lot of people know that, actually. We haven't mentioned that so much, but Juno was the first initial name that was came up. And later, as the idea expanded, then it just changed from there. But that's where I grew up from. I grew up in Canada. I've been living in different countries, and I moved to Norway in 2013. I started up my own practice, focused on a niche, catering to emergency care and the clinic, and the clinic did really well in a small area, and it's kind of self-sustaining now. And I was able to concentrate on different things. That allowed me to concentrate on different things because it was bringing in some good amount of revenue in the company, and I was able to focus my power elsewhere.
Do you still run the practice as well, or is it full-time Iagon at this point?
It's full-time Iagon, so I don't run the practice anymore specifically. But it's self-sustaining, so it's not. I'm not needed there. If I'm
That's
needed,
awesome.
yeah. If I'm needed, I do come in just for sometimes emergency cases, if it's really traumatic. And I also want to keep my hands fresh. I don't want to lose my practice in terms of my hand skills, because if you don't practice something, you lose it very fairly quickly.
Hmm.
And even though it's second nature, I'd like to go maybe on a weekend or something for one or two emergency cases. Yeah.
That's really cool in that it's allowed you, it's afforded you the time to really go after your passion here with Iagon.
Yes.
Is awesome, and you can kind of dive into
Mm,
both worlds still. That's kind of
mm,
really fun.
mm.
So when you got into it, was it more when you were doing kind of Gino, was it patients' records, or were you going straight for, decentralized storage economy?
So it was more so focused on the healthcare sector. So more so protecting patient data
Hmm.
privacy. And then in early 2017, when I had more time to focus on it after my two kids were born in 2015 and 2017, and I was able to a little bit focus a little bit more time on it. And I started reaching out to experts in the field because I didn't have that expertise. So I reached out to the current co-founders, Dr. Rohit Gupta, Dr. Claudia Lima, Dr. Lad Harrison. All of them have a very good skill set and different skill set and different area of expertise that they brought on to the idea that became Iagon. Rohit was expert in decentralized cloud computing. He wrote his thesis back in 2005 in regards to distributed computing power. So he concluded his thesis saying that it was impossible to reward the resource provider. So when we talked about the token model with him, he instantly became interested and was really eager to finish his life's work. He's a former director of technology for Expedia, currently one of the senior managers at Google. He has good pedigree. And Dr. Claudia Lima, he's a former CTO of Huawei. He's currently kind of teaching blockchain infrastructure to enterprises and governments. And then we have Dr. Dr. Alad Harrison, who's a machine learning expert, economics professor, and that's where the machine learning came in from Iagon. And that all these ideas combined together kind of made Juno into a much more, let's say, a mature vision and a much more broader vision, not focusing just on medical records, but a much more broader on storage and compute as well.
And for those viewers who don't know, now that we've kind of made it this far, what is Iagon?
Sure. I mean, Iagon is like an Airbnb, simply put, Airbnb for storage and compute. So you have a marketplace, you have a buy side and a sell side. Buy side meaning people that are looking for storage and compute, and then you have a sell side, people that are selling their idle storage and compute capacity. How we differ from other projects in the decentralized space is we're learning the behavior of those sell side marketplace, for example, for the people that are providing their idle capacities. So anyone can be part of the network by providing their idle storage or compute, and they get rewarded in return for Iagon tokens. And learning a behavior comes in. We learn their behavior in terms of performance, availability, uptime, trustability, location, things that are important for the end user. So, as an Airbnb marketplace, and as an end user, or from people that are buying the storage and compute, they're looking for certain types of variables, high performance, different locations, regions, for compliance purposes, and maybe uptime. And you might not need a full available data all the time because sometimes the data is archival data and it's not accessed constantly. So maybe you can pay a cheaper price for that type of data. So that's simple, I guess, a little bit elongated, but that's basically what Iagon is.
No, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So, like, in a traditional sense, you guys would be replacing like the Google storage or like Amazon cloud storage or whatever Microsoft's cloud storage is in a more decentralized manner where anybody can participate in that.
Correct. And allows us to also be a little bit, give more control to the end user because we don't have control of the data. The user has full operational sovereignty of the data, and at the same time, their cost effectiveness is much less because we're tapping into idle capacities that are available worldwide, right? So different from, we're kind of tackling, I guess, AWS in a sense, but obviously it's a long way to go before we get there. Uh, we're just at the storage side right now, and just launched on mainnet a month ago. So, but we're aiming for those kind of solutions, little by little, kind of providing those use cases in a decentralized manner.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so, like, who are the potential like node operators or people with storage? Is it somebody like myself with a desktop with extra storage space, or is it
Yeah.
somebody who's got like extra storage space on a server rack, or all the above? Who's
Yeah.
the potential like space host?
Yeah, it's anyone can be part of the network. There's minimum requirements for sure, because we don't want inefficient data or inefficient, because IPFS has that. They don't have a minimum requirement. Anyone can be a data provider. But here we have minimum requirements of a certain type of read speed, which is 20 megabytes per MB per seconds. And then we have also a minimum bandwidth, which is the same amount as well. So it's a minimum requirement. As long as you meet the minimum requirement, you're able to participate in providing your idle capacities. Because if the bandwidth is not good and the read write speed is not good, then what happens is you create an inefficient network for the end user, and it doesn't pan out. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And like, what are some use cases, I guess, where somebody would want to like, I mean, I could think of like, location. I wouldn't want to be pulling data from a server in the middle of like Russia or just the other side of the world
Yeah.
per se. Not that it's Russia or anything like that, but
Yeah,
you'd want it more local to you, I guess, so it's
exactly.
faster. Like, what are some of the reasons that somebody would select different parameters that you guys have?
So first is compliance. That's the number one thing. So for example, HIPAA compliance in the US, which is required to store data within the US, for GDPR in the EU, which is required that data doesn't be transferred, can't be transferred outside the EU. So first of all, compliance is a big thing. Obviously, efficiency and performance go there as well. So the closer the storage is to it, the closer you can kind of fetch the data. The faster, sorry, you can fetch the data, and it's much more efficient, right? So those are the two things. But we built on the compliance factor, and that's allows us to be compliant. So and target Web2 customers in that sense.
And it sounds like here, so your customers you guys are going for are commercial
Yeah.
customers, like doctor's offices or medical offices, like you're talking about, and things like that that need secure storage. So it's not for somebody like myself to store my MP3s or anything like that.
Well, we have the Dropbox type of solution as well. So we're tackling that side as well. But right now in the current stage is cold storage, meaning you're not able to access your files in a live and a hot format, meaning that you can play and open and things like that live on the kind of a Dropbox solution. It's more for just storing the data in a decentralized manner, secure manner.
And I looked on your website. You guys have had a really long roadmap to get here. It's not
Mm.
like you guys are just coming up. You've been around since it looks like 2017, correct? Or
Yes.
so. And you've done a lot to get to where you are to release on mainnet today. Can you talk a little bit about that road, some of the hurdles you guys had to overcome
Yeah.
to get to that release?
Yes. So, first of all, there's a vision, right? And you have a vision. Any project has vision can be great, but the practicality of, like, say, setting out the vision is difficult than it seems. And first of all, is finding a team that's working around you is hard. Also, making sure that all the architecture, let's say, problems are solved right away. That Cardano did a great job, for example, on that. Building a great architecture, and we're doing research-based peer reviews before actually building out, right? And I think that we took a page there, even though we made that mistake of the architecture using Ethereum first, which was kind of more so practicality reasons, things like gas fees For example, if you're signing up for a subscription, you have to pay a gas fee of kind of equivalent to the subscription fee, which doubles the fee, right? So our fee, for example, is 1 terabyte for $24 a year, right? So that's pretty cheap. And if you're paying a gas fee of $24, it doesn't really help in a practicality sense, right? There's much more problems in Ethereum in terms of scalability and things like that. So we had some issues there as well. And also GDPR wasn't relevant, the data compliance. It was coming up, but it wasn't really relevant until 2018. So we had to consider that. We did deploy Pacific MVP on the Ethereum side, and you were able to store and run a miner app. Miner app it was called, which was for the storage providers, right? So, but we realized quickly that the architecture in terms of compliance was not good enough. And if we wanted to target Web2 customers that require compliance by premise, so you can't have adoption in Web2 if you are not compliant with data regulations. So we had to kind of redo everything there on the architecture side. And while we were doing that, it took a while until 2020, where we decided at the end of 2020 to move to Cardano. And Cardano didn't have the smart contract features. That's why we went on Ethereum first. And once they had the smart contracts, it was much easier to kind of deploy there as well. So it was a long road. We went for a different route, filing for patents in 2018. We invested a lot of our own funds in the company. So a lot of it was self-funded to get to the point to 2021 where we had a secondary funding round.
I love that. And so I guess I want to ask, like, thinking about it, like medical offices and things, why would a medical office want to store their data in a decentralized service? Is it for compliance? Is it because privacy, or kind of a combination of both? What's kind of like your sales pitch? What problem solve is it for them?
Yeah, so then we have to go into how different centralized solutions are, like the current solutions are, what the problems are with the current infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we have in centralized infrastructure like Google or AWS is you have a single file, and when you upload it, it's stored in a specific server at a specific time, right? And we call that a data lake. So the server has all these files, and it has an encryption around it, or like let's say a firewall, whatever it is. We call that like a fence around the lake, right? So if that fence is breached, or some hacker or attacker jumps the fence and breaks the encryption, then basically they can swim in the lake and collect as much data as they want. And that's how these data leaks happen, in a simple way, of course. But these data leaks happen all the time, and sensitive information. And we've had some big ones just recently. We had Twitter, LinkedIn, all these big ones going on, and it happened in the healthcare industry often as well. NHS being the kind of the recent big one in the UK. There has been much more as well, right? In the Canada, US, anywhere, name it. So what this does in a decentralized manner is, instead of having a lake with a fence around it, think about multiple mini lakes that are completely frozen and also have the fence around it, right? So the mini lakes are the distributed nodes across the network, and the frozen part is the kind of the blockchain access layer, right? And the fence is the encryption, meaning that even if you break the encryption, there's no way to penetrate the lake because it's completely frozen. You won't see a picture, you won't see words. There's no way to make sense of that data. And the only person that can combine those mini lakes into kind of a liquid lake is the person that uploaded the file. So that's the access layer, which is on chain, meaning that the access key is only with the user. And that's what makes it much more secure, much more private, gives operational sovereignty. And at the same time, we can comply with these regulations because we can store these files in a specific way that the user wants.
That makes a lot of sense. And like how data can kind of be safely stored and I guess kind of like give privacy to everybody a little bit, and a little bit more strength of security. So, what is the Iagon token specifically, and like what are the utilities behind it?
Yeah, so the Icon token is a utility token. There's a few kind of utility based around it. First is the rewarding mechanism, which is basically if you're providing your idle capacities, you get rewarded in Icon tokens in return. Also, as a subscription fee, later we'll have payments in IIG tokens. But for now, for example, if you hold Iagon tokens, you can get a discount on your subscription. So, for example, you can get, instead of half a terabyte, you can get 1 terabyte of storage if you hold Iagon tokens. The other one is we're going to have down the road, we're going to have governance and DAO as well. So they have a governance utility. People that are providing their idle capacity have to stake a certain amount of IG as kind of a trust bond between the network to show, kind of put their money where their mouth is, kind of thing. And they will basically stake a certain amount of IIG to be part of the network. And that way they kind of are trusted because they have kind of put a stake. But it's something similar to a Cardano type of model. There's no slashing mechanisms for the actual stake.
Okay, and is the Iagon token is that on Ethereum and Cardano? Both?
No, just Cardano now.
Just Cardano.
We migrated fully over to Cardano, and there are still tokens on the ERC20 side, but they're not. There's no liquidity on the ERC20 side, so we have done a swap. The swap actually ends. The last time they can swap is in April, so they have to send all their requests in by April. So very close to the last swaps, basically.
Hey, if you're listening out here and you're still holding Iagon tokens on Ethereum, you better get your application in to
Yeah,
swap that out.
yeah.
And on the Cardano side, where is a lot of that liquidity found?
It's on MinSwap. We have also listed on a couple of centralized exchanges, Bitrue and Gates, and also we are on a retail, let's say retail broker, Bitpanda, and there's a few other dexes that we're also listed on as well, Wing Riders, Spectrum Finance. Recently, we provided some market making for Genius Yield as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so really all over. I like that a lot. Lots of liquidity out there. I was
Yes.
looking at the products and I love how you have like storage, and I was interested in, what's the difference between like storage and Agora or Ledger Flow and the three
Yeah.
different products you have. What's the difference between the three?
So Ledger Flow, Agora. We'll go to Agora first. Agora we presented in 2021. So there's a problem with Agora because it's such a difficult product to tackle. The reason why it's kind of like, let's say, a Reddit for storage for files. So let's say if you want to post a public file, you post it publicly, and there will be, for example, a patent, whatever. And instead of in Reddit, you have like a specific topic being a subject, and then people talking about that topic. Here will be a file, and you talk about the specific file, right? And the problem here comes if there's some illegal information, whatever the governments consider not good to be posted publicly, has to be removed or whatever. And we found out quickly that that was kind of like it needs much more thinking before it's implemented, and we can't be at the center of the control for that. That has to be a community driven project. Actually, it can't be driven by a single entity. Otherwise, they could get in trouble and they'd be reliable for anything that happens, right?
What's posted?
Yeah, yeah. So we forego or Agora. It's not part of the plans currently, but we will maybe implement it or ask the community to implement it down the road. What we're looking for Ledger Flow, what it is. So why we're building these products on top of the infrastructure is to drive adoption, right? We want to create different use cases that we believe that aren't in the Web3, or for example, the Cardano ecosystem, or in the Web2 sphere, right? So for Ledger Flow, what it is accounting basically management app. So you can actually manage your assets there. You can create a multi-sig, and you can basically manage your assets as an enterprise on Cardano. That's currently not available. So now you can manage your assets with multi-sig and manage your invoices, send, receive invoices. So, for example, if you are transacting in the Web3 community as enterprise, and you're paying your developers in cryptocurrency, you can send those invoices in cryptocurrency, right? And that way, also it allows you to also track the accounting much easier. All this while using the decentralized infrastructure that we have been working on, right? The invoices will be stored on the storage, right? And all this information will be stored on the storage itself. So Google has done a great job, for example, with that. They've created such a large infrastructure base, and they've created these cool tools that everyone uses, like Gmail, Google Meets, Google Docs, that everyone uses, but all that is using the infrastructure. Unknowingly, you're using the storage, right? And that's what we were kind of driving at with our kind of apps that we're building out.
I like that a lot. And there's a lot of fight. Like, what is your kind of thought on, the centralization of these things, like the Google App Store or the Apple App Store, and just, being able to just have your data stored in a decentralized manner where these centralized services can't really have full control or use it for advertising. I think that's pretty much the goal
Yeah,
here, huh?
yeah, yeah. That's
I
where they make
love
their
that.
money, right?
Absolutely. It makes
Yeah,
it, I love Gmail, but at the end of the day, like, if they're taking all of our information and using it for stuff, that's kind of a little weird. I'm happy to pay for
yeah.
my privacy a
Yeah,
little
we
bit.
did some tests actually. So it's like, when you do Google, how it records everything information. So if you're talking if you have any kind of activation, sound activation on your kind of Android device, and you talk about any random topic that you don't have, like maybe for example, cat food, right? A random topic that you didn't even have a cat, and you start searching, and it'll do targeted marketing with cat food. So-
It's so wild how they do that. And like it's even more important when you're talking like medical records for
yeah.
folks and
Mm,
things like that, and things that really need to be private. But then I was listening to a speech from Deloitte and their AI department on how a lot of this can then get used, like where you can have your privacy, but the data can still be used for AI training and like finding vaccines or things like that. Have
yeah.
you guys kind of thought about that with Iagon and stuff like that?
Yeah, we did a POC with Midnight actually at the end of 2023,
Yeah.
proof of concept, and basically what we're doing is using ZK proofs to hide sensitive information and display whatever parameters the other party wants to see. So, for example, and this is exactly with the healthcare kind of pilot that we're working with. So, let's say if it's a pharmaceutical company that's doing a research and maybe for a new drug, a new cure, and they're looking at a certain demographic, a certain age group, and they can put the parameters out there and put what they're willing to kind of give for this market research on a marketplace. And simply users that want to participate can participate, and that's their choice. No one forces them, but then they get the incentivized kind of the payback or whatever that is from the other party. And the ZK proofs hides, the Midnight protocol hides all the data that's sensitive to the user and only displays that data that's needed for the pharmaceutical company. And that helps both parties, right?
Yes. This makes a lot of sense. I'm sitting here, the wheels are turning that after this podcast, I have some introductions to make with you. Wes, the co-founder of Rare Network here, he works in informatics and healthcare solutions and data. So That's his day job outside of Rare Network,
Yeah,
and then yeah, the discussion. Your everything here is hitting so close with Deloitte's AI discussion. Introducing you there seems like something that has to be done. Um, what are future plans for Iagon 2024? Like, what's on the roadmap that you can? What type of any alpha you can drop for the listeners?
yeah.
What's coming up?
So first of all, we gotta mention the Rare Evo event, right? We're very excited for that. That's coming in August, right? So this is the first big event that we are going to, and kind of showcasing our product. We've waited a long time to actually showcase our product publicly, and we've never bought a booth or anything before that. So this is the first time we'll have a booth. We have a main sponsor as well for the hackathon, and we're very excited to drive that initiative, and we're very excited to kind of participate at the event. Very excited. And in before we get there, we're going to have decentralized compute out in end of Q1. So the end of this quarter, we'll have decentralized compute that will allow us actually to participate in the hackathon, because people will allow other people or devs to build on top of the infrastructure of Iagon. So we have a few other things going on, like web hosting, encrypted messaging, mail, a lot of other tools, multimedia dApps that will be built on top of the infrastructure. We have Stature, which is reputation protocol. So what that is if it gets funded, of course, in the Catalyst, we're still going to be actually developing. It might take longer. But what that is basically reputation of a specific person or individual, right? So let's say as a node operator, we're learning the behavior of their performance, availability, trustability, different factors that are important to our protocol. And we give them a specific score for that as a resource provider. So with high reputation, and they can earn badges to quantify their kind of participation in the protocol. But how we thought about it is that this can be taken and leveraged to other platforms as well that have different variables that are important to them. So, for example, a DEX might have a different important, how much you trade or what size you trade or whatever that might be. A lending platform might have something like making sure the loans are paid back on time, that you have good loan deals, certain things like that. And all this you can add to your reputation across the Web3 ecosystem without revealing who you are. Trustless verification and trustless reputation, which could benefit hugely, because now you're not looking at the individual of how he looks or how he or she acts. You're looking at a specific metrics that are already proven by these different protocols he or she has participated in. And this also gives highlights like lower people that aren't as, let's say, active in the public social sphere, or might not have as much recognition as some of the bigger names, right? This will give more recognition, more limelight to people have actually contributed so much to the ecosystem. And this could be further used in governance, because now you have not just the amount of tokens you hold, but the amount of reputation you have within the protocol that you've participated in. How good you have been as a node operator, how good you have been as a loanee or person that's paying back loans, and things like that. So that's a big protocol that we're really excited for. That one's coming up, but we also have Fantasy Brawl, which we briefly announced, which is also again built on the infrastructure on Iagon. This is going to be the first app built on the top of the infrastructure that's going to be having its own kind of let's say own kind of brand, right? So Fantasy Brawl is a sports betting platform, daily fantasy, and also seasonal fantasy, right? So it's going to be very kind of intriguing for people to drive. Again, everything here is to drive the adoption, and everything here is given back to the node operators, because the node operators are the backbone of Iagon, and incentivizing them and driving adoption to them will create a huge demand for more node operators to come in and provide their idle capacities. And we have a lot of big ambitions in 2024 for sure, but that's just some of it.
Man, that's a lot. I love that. And we're honored to have you guys at Rare Evo and a part of the hackathon, the lead sponsor for the hackathon. We're really excited to execute on that this year and add it. And having you guys there with us is really proving to make it just an amazing event this year. So, really honored to have you guys on board. And it sounds like you guys are working through a lot leading up to the event. So, there'll be a lot of new things to talk about with everybody at the event.
Yes, for
Where
sure.
when viewers are listening to this and they're like, "Man, I want to know more about Iagon," where do you send them?
Well, Iagon.com is probably the best place to go. And if there's further questions, our Twitter marketing folks are pretty active on Twitter. Discord has all of our node operators and support. So anything for technical assistance, we have Discord. We also have Telegram groups and other social medias, but I think the Iagon.com is probably the best way to go. And there's documentation there if you want to interested in becoming a node operator as well.
I love that. Anything you think we missed on today? This has been a very I thought I knew a lot about Iagon. I learned a lot here today, so I really appreciate it. Anything you think we missed on?
I think the main thing is that we were really like let's say surprised at how fast we've grown as a company since the mainnet launch. So since mainnet launch, we've had 284 nodes providing storage across 45 countries.
I,
We have around 160 users for the storage side and 123 web hosted people that are hosting their websites on
I,
Iagon. So it's just a little bit over a month, and so it's really exciting to see how far the project has come, even though it's just the start. Because you start going when mainnet growing starts growing and people start participating, and it's a long road since we've been here. So I wanted to point that out, that we're really appreciative of the community that has participated and has shown trust in us to participate in our network.
Yeah, those are impressive numbers. Like, definitely want to reiterate that you guys just went live on mainnet
Yeah,
within the month, pretty much. So, that's really cool that it's kind of taken off and like years of hard work. This
yeah,
isn't something you guys just came up with in the last bull market. We're
mm.
talking almost a decade, closing in on a decade here of
Yeah.
working on this. So, congratulations
Thank you.
to you guys for getting there and all the hard work and hurdles you jumped. It's really cool, and I appreciate you coming on, and would love to have you on again before the event as you guys are rolling stuff out to make those announcements. This has been a lot of fun, and like I said, I learned a lot, so
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.